What's going on, everyone? This is Kevin here, coming at you with my hands-on and first impressions video for the TCL Stylus 5G. So let's get started. Now I'd like to thank TCL for being kind enough for sending this phone out to me to cover here on the channel. Now of course, all opinions expressed in this video are completely my own, but that being said, I do appreciate their support. Now this is a pretty noteworthy and exciting device for a variety of different reasons, but the main reason is because this phone does feature a built-in stylus, and there really aren't too many other Android devices offering this feature. Now Samsung does have the S22 Ultra, and that is a very high-end device, building upon the successes they've had with the Note series of phones in the past. And then there's also Motorola with their G Stylus series of phones, and they've had two of those launch this year. So it's pretty cool to see TCL jumping into this category with their own offering. Now, of course, this device is really not meant to be a competitor to the S22 Ultra because this is a more lower-end mid-range device, but it's cool to see that you can now get a phone with a stylus built in at a variety of different price points. Now, as far as availability goes, this phone is currently only offered at T-Mobile and Metro by T-Mobile, and I'm not aware of there being an unlocked version of the phone coming out anytime soon. So if you are part of either of those two carriers, then good news for you because the TCL Stylus 5G is being offered by them. Now before I show you a variety of different things about the device, let's take a closer look and see what all comes included here in the box. So here is the box. You can see up front it does say TCL Stylus 5G with a picture of the phone. We also have some summarized information about the device, but I'll be going over all of this throughout the video. Now in the box we have a SIM card removal tool. We have a quick start guide. We have an 18-watt USB wall adapter, so this is fast charging. And we have a USB-C cable for charging and data transfer. Now with this device, we have a very large 6.81-inch display. So one of the biggest displays that I've used on a phone anytime recently. Now this display is IPS LCD and it does run at 60 Hz, so no faster refresh rate compared to most standard smartphones out there. I know that there are at this point some mid-range devices featuring 90 and even 120 Hz, but this is the standard 60 Hz. Not really a big deal, but something I did want to point out here. Now this display is 1080p, so that's awesome. Things look really crisp and clear here. We have a PPI of 395, a 20.5 by 9 aspect ratio, so very tall and narrow form factor, and we have an 84.9% screen to body ratio. So pretty small bezels all throughout. Now the bottom bezel is slightly thicker, but we do at least have a hole punch for the front facing camera. And that front facing camera is 13 megapixels, and stay tuned for my full review video of this device as I'll be showing you a variety of different image samples from all the various cameras. Now there is no wireless charging, unfortunately, with the TCL Stylus 5G, but we do have a fingerprint sensor built into the power button. So we'll give that a try right now. It's very fast and responsive, and we'll give that one more try. So that works very well. And in addition to that, this phone does offer face unlock. So I do appreciate that we have multiple methods here for accessing the phone. Now taking a look at the back of the device, we do have a quad camera setup. So there's a 50 megapixel main camera, a 5 megapixel ultra wide angle camera, a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera, and a 2 megapixel macro camera for close-up images. So this phone does support portrait mode for both the rear and front cameras, which is really awesome. Now unfortunately, video recording with this device is limited at 1080p for both the front and rear cameras. So I do wish this phone did have 4K video recording, but unfortunately that feature is not present here. Now here's how things look on the camera app on the device. This is with the main rear camera right now. And then from here, we can switch over to the ultra wide angle camera, which allows us to fit a lot more content into the frame. So definitely a pretty useful feature to have. We can then head over to this menu to access the super macro camera. So again, with that camera, you can get very close up here and things are going to be nice and crisp and clear. So certainly a pretty cool feature to have. Now I don't think it's quite as useful as having an ultra wide angle camera, but at the same time, I'm glad that it is here. And then we can head over to portrait mode to get those nice blurred out backgrounds. And then we can flip around to do the same thing with the front facing camera. So there's me right there, and you can do portrait photos or standard front facing photos as well. Now with this device, we have 4 gigabytes of RAM and the MediaTek Dimensity 700 processor. Now I will say, 4 gigs of RAM is probably the minimum you'd want to get with a smartphone at this point in 2022. I know there's some phones that are even lower end that have 3 gigabytes of RAM or even 2 gigs of RAM, but when you have a device with that little of RAM, it really doesn't run well at all. So again, I'm not going to jump to any conclusions right away, but I will say that 4 gigs of RAM is probably the bare minimum that they could have given this phone. And then as far as the processor goes, it's a pretty decent mid-range processor. Of course, it does give the phone 5G compatibility, hence the name of the device. And at this point in 2022, you can certainly get by without 5G, but at the same time, if you are going to get a new device, then you might as well get one that does support your carrier's latest and greatest network. Now, as far as the processor performance goes, again, I feel like it will at least take care of the needs of the majority of people out there, especially if you're just looking for a phone that you can make phone calls, do text messages, do occasional social media, and then also watch video content. But I did run a benchmark test using Geekbench 5, and I'll show you the scores from that test right now. But essentially, I got a single core score of 553 and a multi-core score of 1738. So what I recommend doing is running this test on your current phone and then compare your scores to these scores to get a better idea of whether or not the TCL Stylus 5G is going to indeed be a performance upgrade for you. Because it is possible that this phone could be a downgrade from what you currently have. It really just depends. And then with this device, we're getting 128 gigabytes of internal storage along with microSD card expansion. So 128 gigabytes is really a great amount of storage to get you going. I would say that the majority of people probably are not going to end up needing more storage beyond that. But again, it is at least nice that we do have microSD card expansion. But the main point here is that I'm glad that we at least have a lot of storage to begin with. Now this phone features a 4000 milliamp hour internal battery, so pretty decent battery capacity. You'll definitely have no problem getting through an entire day of usage with this device. And in addition to that, as you saw from the charger that is included in the box, this phone does support 18 watt fast charging. So it is nice that you can recharge the battery here pretty quickly. Now out of the box, this device does feature Android 12, and it does feature TCL's skin laid over it. Now TCL has added in a variety of different features that are definitely very practical, so I'm glad that they've kind of changed things here for the better. I've noticed that with other Android devices, sometimes they change things just for the sake of changing them, but with TCL's approach towards Android, they do add in genuinely useful features. Now stay tuned for my dedicated tips and tricks video about this device, as I'll be showing you how to do a variety of different things with it. And then finally, I'm really happy to see that this phone does indeed have NFC, so if you like to make mobile contactless payments using Tap and Pay, for example, then you can definitely do that here with this device, as it does support that. Now, as I mentioned earlier on in the video, the stylus is the signature feature of the TCL Stylus 5G, and it is located at the bottom of the device. It features a click out, click in function, so then from there, once you take the stylus out of the phone, you'll get this pop-up giving you a bunch of different options. So some of them include writing a note, screenshot doodle, e-signature, GIF maker or GIF maker, whatever you call it. So there's a lot of different options here, which is great. We'll go over to write a note right now. There we go. So definitely a nice responsive stylus, certainly nowhere near as advanced as what you'd get with a much more expensive smartphone such as the S22 Ultra, but at the same time, for what this is, I think it does work really well. You can even erase if you want to. You have other drawing features too. You can add in images, you can pick different colors as well and different pen styles. So definitely a lot of different abilities here with the stylus. And it's nice that we're getting some pretty decent built-in software so that we can make the most of it. Now, of course, you can also go into the Play Store and you can find a bunch of different stylus optimized apps. So there's really a ton of different ways to make the most of the stylus with this phone. So I think it's definitely an awesome feature, and I also appreciate that the stylus doesn't really take up any extra space with the phone. So even if it is a feature that you don't find yourself using too often, there's really no downside with having it. One of the things I noticed is that as TCL has been marketing this device, it seems like they are especially focusing on using the stylus to sign documents. So if you're like me, you probably get a lot of different DocuSign and other documents that essentially need digitally signed. So it's much better just having a built-in pen like this, being able to do your signature very easily here versus having to print out a document, sign it, and then scan it, and then re-upload it. So that's one advantage of many to having a built-in stylus in your smartphone. Now, taking a closer look at the rest of the hardware of this device, I will say I'm not overly impressed with the build materials of this phone. It's kind of a cheap plastic material on the back of it. That being said though, I don't think it's a deal breaker in that regard because most people will definitely be getting a case to pair up with the device. And if you end up doing that, then you're not really going to notice what material it is made out of. And of course also, this phone is still a tremendous value for what you're getting, considering that it is a lower end device with a built-in stylus. Now, as far as other things that have impressed me so far, one of them is definitely the display. Now, TCL does have a long history with creating TVs, so I'm not surprised that the phone does have a really nice looking display, but for what it is an IPS LCD panel at 1080p. I feel like colors are really good here, viewing angles are pretty decent as well, and they really couldn't have done a much better job with the display given the fact that this does indeed need to be a lower end Android smartphone. So I think given the tools that TCL had to work with here, they really made an outstanding device as far as the hardware goes. Now, taking a look at the left side of the phone, we just have the slot for the microSD card and SIM card. Then on the right side, we have volume up, volume down, and also the power button, which is also the fingerprint sensor. Then up top here, we have just the noise canceling microphone. And then on the bottom of the device, we have the 3.5mm headphone jack, microphone, USB-C port for charging and data transfer, speaker, and then of course the stylus. And then looking at the back of the device, again, things are pretty plain here. I do at least appreciate that this material is a matte finish because it doesn't really pick up any fingerprints. But again, it's pretty boring overall. Now we have the camera module with the flash, and then just the TCL logo in the corner. So again, I definitely recommend pairing up this phone with a case since you're really not losing out on covering anything on the back of the device since it looks really plain. But of course, also since it is made out of plastic, you really want to make sure that your device is safe and secure. So putting a case on here will definitely give you a lot more longevity with the phone. But this concludes my hands-on and first impressions video of the TCL Stylus 5G. Now most importantly, I'm really curious to know what you think about this device. Do you think this is another great budget offering from TCL, or are there some features here that you wish the phone had that it doesn't currently have? Definitely let me know, but this is Kevin here, this is the TCL Stylus 5G, and I will see you in the next one.